Hello and welcome to the Berkowitz Hanna podcast. I'm Russ Berkowitz, senior partner at Berkowitz Hanna, and I will be your moderator. On today's episode, our guest is Andy Wildstein, who is widely known as one of the leading trial lawyers in Connecticut, has practiced law for over 25 years. Very excited to hear Andy share with us his professional journey, including why he became a lawyer, specifically a trial lawyer, what is involved in being a successful trial lawyer, and any personal sacrifices he has made along the way. Finally, I think it should be pretty interesting to hear Andy discuss why he switched from doing primarily medical malpractice defense work on behalf of doctors in hospitals at a prestigious defense firm before coming aboard to our firm, where he now represents victims who have sustained severe medical malpractice and personal injuries. As a firm, and me personally, are very lucky to have someone of Andy's caliber working with us, then against us, since I had a number of cases with Andy over the years. And he's always been a very tough and smart adversary and a little bit of a pain in the neck sometimes. So without further ado, I welcome Andy to the show. Hey, Andy, how you doing today?
Great, Russ. Thank you so much for those kind words. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
Glad to have you here. We have a lot of ground to cover today, but what I want to talk to you about first is something that's going on right now in the medical malpractice and personal injury area as far as trials, and that's the large verdicts that seem to be coming out throughout Connecticut over the last year. We talk about it in the office a lot, and I'd like to, have you share with us what you think is actually going on out there in the last year, where there have been many cases, for example, where someone is making a demand of $700,000 for a personal injury case, and the insurance company offers them $400,000. They can't come to a meeting of the minds as far as whether the case should settle. And then the case goes to trial, and the plaintiff, who would have taken $700,000, gets $9 million at trial. So, and this seems to be a common and running theme that's going on throughout Connecticut. Maybe you can share with us what your opinion is as why this is suddenly happening here in Connecticut.
Yeah, sure. I think that the numbers, while they're certainly higher than historically we've seen, they're not excessive. And I think what's happening is that juries are, as attorneys, we're able to present to the juries a really extensive sense showing, just what the cost is of what they're going to have to endure, what they've had to endure, what they're going to deal with in the future. And then really being able to portray not just those economic damages, those money damages, but the impact that it's going to have on people going forward, how it's impacting their lives, their ability to enjoy life. And I think that jurors are just, the more and more we learn as a society, the more sophisticated they are, and they understand the value of these losses is really something extraordinary. And so the numbers, while they're higher than they've been, they're fair. And I think that it's just a result of people having a better sense of how these injuries impact others going forward.
I know that when I've discussed with risk managers at hospitals when we're trying to resolve cases, and they're offering us the same amount of money for a case that they were offering 15 years ago. And I try to use an example for them that, if a house was worth $300,000 15 years ago, and now it's worth $1.5 million here in Fairfield County, then why is a death case not any different, where they're offering the same money today as they were offering 15 years ago? So I think that, at least from my perspective, part of it is that people are starting to get an understanding that numbers are greater today than they were a long time ago. And I think that that's just catching up with all the other things that we have going in life.
Absolutely. And we see it with just all of the costs that we all have. Think about what we had to spend when we're buying a car 20 years ago versus today. Everything's more expensive, and the value of things is higher. And so people understand that, and their verdicts have been reflecting that.
In any event, it's a very interesting phenomenon that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I think we, as plaintiffs, are happy that it's happening. I mean, we've been very lucky at our firm, as you know, where we've had some very large awards over the last year. Well, those are cases that settle. So we haven't experienced in the last year that tremendous large verdict. We've been getting large settlements, which are equivalent to those large verdicts. But it's just an interesting thing that we're seeing throughout Connecticut, even on cases that would probably never get that number to resolve a case. And if the carrier had just offered a little bit more money, the case would have settled for 1/10 of what these verdicts are.
Yeah, and the carriers certainly have been lagging behind in terms of catching up with what the juries are doing. But I think when they see, over the last year and really since COVID, they have to adjust for these larger verdicts because it impacts the settlement value and what these cases are worth.
Are you finding that the numbers are higher in specific jurisdictions in Connecticut versus others, or is it consistent throughout the state, these large numbers that are happening?
Yeah, it seems that historically some jurisdictions have, bigger numbers than others, but it seems that throughout all of the jurisdictions, the numbers are going up, the values are going up. And so I think whether you're in a more rural part of the state or if you're down in Fairfield County, the carriers really have to acknowledge that the case is worth more than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
One of the reasons why we hired you, and we were lucky enough for you to accept your position as a partner in this firm a little over a year ago, was that we knew you were a fantastic lawyer, ethical attorney, and a great guy. And so we were very pleased that you decided to come on board with us. But tell us a little bit more about you, your background. Give us a little insight as to why you got involved in the law, and then specifically, what drew you to being a medical malpractice, personal injury attorney?
Oh, sure. So, I'm born and raised in Connecticut, from New Haven County, and when I think about why I wanted to be a lawyer, it was always sort of a natural choice for me. I was really being trained to be a lawyer before I knew what it was. My parents, my mom in particular, was always a very strong advocate for people who didn't necessarily have a voice themselves. She was, before there were all sorts of services for kids with special needs, she was fighting for those kids in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it was always just taught to me that our job is to help people in need. And in fact, when I was a kid, at dinner time every night, my mom would ask the same question of us, which was, what did you do today to help somebody? And and as a kid, sometimes it was like, oh, come on, Mom, why are you asking me this? But it forced us to think about it and to always be in the mindset of every single day doing something for somebody else. And so as I got older and I was thinking about, what do I want to do? I knew it was going to be something that helped people. And for me, being the voice for somebody as a lawyer was just a natural choice. And so went to law school and I started out doing personal injury defense. And so car accident cases, things like that. And it was great. It was interesting. I got a lot of experience in court, but I had one case in particular where there was a young woman who had been horribly injured in a bus accident. And in that case, I started to learn a lot about the medicine that was involved with caring for this patient and this woman and what she was going to need moving forward. But I also got to see how litigation could really have an impact on somebody who had catastrophic injuries. And so that morphed for me into an interest in medical malpractice because typically the damages are much more significant. The impact both on the doctors and on the patients is extraordinary in many cases. And so I was drawn to that because I knew I could at least have the potential to have more of an impact on somebody. And as you said, I started out doing work with doctors and healthcare providers. And then that evolved into where we are now.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. But those of us that have attained some level of success in this business usually have had a mentor. I know for myself, when I was a law student, I was a law clerk for a judge who ultimately became the Iowa Chief Justice of the Iowa Supreme Court, who just happened to be a medical malpractice attorney before he became a judge. And for whatever reason, he took a liking to me, and he mentored me, and he made me feel that what we do as, plaintiff med mal attorneys and serving as a voice for people that really can't speak was something that was very important. And I really took that to heart, and it really gave me a purpose and a path. Wondering about you, if you along the way had any mentors that tilted you in a certain direction or established a philosophy in how you would practice law.
Yeah, Russ, I've been lucky over the years to have a lot of attorneys who served as mentors for me, and I've been able to learn a lot from them. There's one attorney in particular who has really had a lasting impact, and I think about him virtually every day and the lessons that he taught me, because he was a defense lawyer. And so in addition to teaching just about the skills of being a trial lawyer, I learned from him, I think, two very important big picture lessons. The first was just having the absolute tenacity and diligence in working up every possible angle on a case so that you're doing everything that you can to represent your client as best you can. But then on the flip side of this, and I think people are sometimes surprised to hear this coming from somebody who was on the defense side, was really instilled in me the importance of having compassion for all of the parties. Because regardless of what was going on, who was right or wrong in the case, there are people who have been injured in a catastrophic and devastating way. And it was always important to treat those people with respect and compassion and understanding, and understanding the perspective of the physicians as well. And so I think it took it to a more emotional level where it's not just about winning and losing, but making sure we're keeping sight on the people that we're representing and sometimes the people that we're opposing.
A lot of people don't really know what goes into being a trial lawyer. I know that you've tried many, many cases over your 25 years of practice. As you look back and as you look forward and as you mentor others, what do you believe are the qualities that a lawyer needs to possess to be a really good trial lawyer?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, in addition to all of the skills that we have to have and knowing the rules and knowing the evidence and all of that, I think the most important thing is demonstrating to the jury your conviction in the case and your passion for the case. And I think the best way to do that is to actually have that conviction and have that passion, really believe in what you're saying, argue what you know is right, and advocate zealously in front of the jury. And I think as a lawyer, if you're trying to convince a jury of something that's maybe a stretch, I think they ultimately see through that. And so I think if you could have that conviction and passion and have the substance behind it to back it up, that's probably one of the key factors in getting good results. I think it's also important to stay humble. It's no matter how many cases you try, there's always something new that you're going to learn. And sometimes that lesson can come from, someone with less experience than you. And you can see something. And I think that it's always important to not let yourself get too, high and mighty, and to know that every single opportunity to learn is going to make you a better lawyer and make you a better advocate for your client. And then, sort of moving that forward, it's also sharing that knowledge with younger attorneys and less experienced attorneys so that they can do that, for generations to come.
And as we both know, preparation before the trial is it's probably the greatest, the top ingredient.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think that, whenever I speak with friends who are not lawyers, they make reference to the law movies and TV shows, and they talk about how, oh, he's so, he's able to make things up as they go. And I think that the actually in the real world, the way you can look effective in doing that is by knowing everything about that case, knowing every page of every medical record, every transcript of every deposition, so that when something happens that's unexpected in court, you're able to run with it. And that's only as a result of preparation. You can't fake that. And so, yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting, over the years, all the cases that I've tried, I always knew that when I was on trial, I was staying up until 2:00 in the morning, getting ready for the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. There was another lawyer on the other side doing the same exact thing. And while, you were going to battle, you had to respect your opponent because everybody was just trying to win on behalf of their client. And it's tiring, right?
Oh, it's exhausting. I mean, it's, and especially with these medical malpractice cases, Russ, I mean, these cases, you might be on trial for a couple of months, and that couple of months doesn't represent the time that goes into it. You're spending weeks and weeks and weeks in preparation in advance, not to mention all of the years leading up to that. It is all encompassing. I know that I always think of this one story where I'm sitting at home one night having dinner while I was on trial, and my wife said something to me, and then she said it again, and she said, and she said to me, you're not really paying attention. I said, all I'm thinking about are the medical records on this particular visit in the emergency department. She's like, fine, we'll talk when this is over.
We all go through that in our practice. It's a very rigorous job, and I obviously knew even before you came here what a hard worker you were, but I really didn't truly understand the actual preparation that you put in on your cases. Even during the life of the litigation before trial, in terms of depositions, you're a supreme preparer, and I always respected that about you. And again, can't say enough about how happy I am that you're with us, and it's a pleasure to have someone like you.
I appreciate that, Russ, and I the move here and being here is. I never looked back. It's just, I'm thrilled to be here and be part of this team.
Now, you've been doing, as we talked about, so far today, you've done defense work for probably over 25 years. Tell us why you decided, after all these years of doing high-end defense work, that you decided to make this career change of doing plaintiff's work representing victims of malpractice versus defending doctors and hospitals for the majority of your career up to this point.
Yeah, it was a big choice, and it was not one that I took lightly. And I think it really was as a result of an evolution over time of just a change in how I felt about these cases, where representing healthcare providers I got a lot of satisfaction from that. And, these were people who were professionals, and they wanted to, vindicate themselves in terms of, allegations that they had done wrong. And it mattered to them. And so I was helping them. So that was, in that respect, I really enjoyed it. But over time, the more and more I was involved in these cases, I just felt that there was so much more help that could be given to the victims of malpractice as opposed to those who are alleged to have committed malpractice. And so, getting back to what I was talking about with my upbringing, how can I help people? I really felt like this was the best way for me to have the biggest impact on somebody and have, both personally and professionally, that higher level of satisfaction. And it's really been the case. It's really been incredibly gratifying work to be able to help folks who are dealing with some of the most difficult times in their lives.
When people ask me, why did Andy switch over and why is he at your firm? And I always say, Andy was always a plaintiff's lawyer. He just came out of the closet.
Well, I'm out and I'm proud. So.
Moving along. What do you view are some of the more rewarding aspects of your job now that you're here doing plaintiff's work?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is this idea that we were just talking about of being able to really have an impact on a family or an individual's life who's just gone through something that never expected and has really altered the trajectory of their life in a very dramatic way. And so that I can't put into words enough how great of an experience that is to be a part of that. And when I came here, I knew all of the attorneys, having dealt with all of you in the past, but also getting to know the staff here, the people who work in the office on these cases all the time, to see what an incredibly dedicated team of people and how vested every single person in this office is in every case that we have. It's just energizing. And it's really been an incredible part of this process for me, where I knew I was coming to a firm that had an incredibly high reputation amongst the community. I knew the attorneys were exceptional, and then to see it goes so far beyond that, and to be a part of it has just been, as I said, it's been an exceptional experience.
That's nice of you to say. I mean, we do have a great staff. I mean, it's a taxing job. I mean, I mentioned in an earlier podcast that we get in probably 25 to 35 potential medical malpractice cases a week. And our staff is right in the middle of taking intakes, speaking with all these prospective clients, deciding whether or not they should speak to one of us as a next step in the process, or letting them know that it's just something that we're not interested in. But we're lucky to have people like that, because it's a hard job. I mean, we hear horrible stories, as you know, and I'm sure that our staff goes home just like us at the end of every week, where I'm wiped out. I mean, hearing about children born with brain damage, the death of a loved one, and it goes on and on and on. Every week we hear, 20, 30 of these stories. And it's rough, and it's so commendable. And I will say that you've done a great job being sort of a good gatekeeper with some of these paralegals who look up to you, and they see how you're mentoring them, and you're respectful, and it's pleasant to see.
Well, it's easy to do with people of this caliber and people who care about these clients as much as they do.
We wind down towards the end of the podcast. What is the most important advice that you would give to a new or a younger lawyer who wants to get involved with medical malpractice work?
Sure. So really, I think two things that I would say. One is, know that it is a lot of work, and you've got to put the time in to do as much as you can to make these cases and to advocate for your clients as best you can. It's not easy. And two, you have to put the client first. This is a profession where it's very easy to put your ego first and think this is about me winning and taking on this difficult person on the opposing side, but it is about client, and focus on them alone as you are pursuing a case and doing everything you can to get them the result they deserve.
And finally, where do you see the future for Andy Wildstein as a plaintiff's medical malpractice attorney?
Well, I see us growing and continuing to do exactly what we're doing, which is advocating for our clients and working up their cases to the highest level of quality and trying them if necessary. And also, in addition to sort of keeping that status quo, always learning, always expanding what we can do, and learning new ways that we can advocate for our clients. And I expect to be doing that for years to come.
I think on further podcasts, we can talk about specific cases that we've worked on or gone to trial, or that you've gone to trial on, and we could spend all day talking about like we've been talking about today. But as like everything else in life, this has to come to a close. So I want to thank you for taking your time out today, Andy. It was great to hear your story. I knew most of it, learned a few new things about you today, and really appreciate everything that you bring to the firm.
And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk today. And again, I just can't thank you and everyone here enough for the opportunity to be here. It's an incredible place, incredible people. Thank you.